Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monday Show with me, Scary, your grateful host. This is a show I do every Monday, usually for patrons, and every once in a while I do it for everyone watching at home. Today we're going to be talking about the balance date update. I'm going to be talking about my thoughts. We're going to go through it together, and then at the end there's going to be patron questions, which I'm going to answer. But hello, chat, welcome. Thanks for coming to hang out with me today. And of course, if you hang around, be in chat, hang out, say hi, whatever works. I'm really excited to chat with all of you as this balance data slate and updates and all the changes to points and stuff have shaken up the current edition of Warhammer 40,000. Now, I hadn't had a chance to really talk about it as like when it was revealed last week and when it kind of came out, and I wanted to give it a time to give it a little bit of time for folks to process it through the like millions of videos that came out like that Thursday. Like everybody was posting a video, and it was just like there was so much noise, and I wanted to give you folks a bit of a rundown without like kind of going to the hype of the rush and kind of seeing it in practice, right? So that's something I like to do, is I like to put things into practice, seeing how it works on the table, and then giving you my honest opinions and thoughts based on what I've seen by playing the game and kind of doing that as well. But hello, everybody in chat. We got Greenblood Crusade. The Darkkin indeed. Good evening. Good evening. Glad I could make it today. I'm glad. Thanks for coming to hang out today for the chat. So, first of all, something I like to do on the Monday show is I talk a little about what happened in the weekend. I went to an RTT. I took sort of like a revamped version of the list, the Dark Eldar list I took to the Capital City Bloodbath. And I went 5-1 there at the height of Eldar shenaniganery. And this time I won my little RTT, and the list was very similar. The point changes for Dark Eldar are minimal, but I think that Dark Eldar are going to increase in value based on the fact that a lot of their big like predators in the meta are going to take a hit, namely Eldar and Genes to the Cult. We can go toe to toe with a lot of the armies out there. We just, it's not an easy army to play. And I feel as a Dark Eldar player, a lot of folks are trying to play Dark Eldar like they did in 9th with like combat and I don't know, lots of little units. That doesn't work. You have to play 3rd edition Dark Eldar. And I'm just lucky that I played back then. So I get to try all that cool stuff. Hello, RPG Luminary. What's going on? Hey, Pomp. What's going on? Dark the Arkin. There you go. See, we're a happy family. It's great. Thanks for coming to hang out with me today. Leave a like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to support the channel, Patreon's the best way. I do 2 bonus videos every week, this one and the List Crunch show, where you can submit army lists and I will break them down for you. Really fun time. And then the bonus Discord, where we have an awesome community of positive gamers from all over the world that play anything from Dark Eldar to Necrons to Chaos to whatever. And there's always stuff going on there, which is really fun. And yeah, okay. Very curious to hear your response to "they still lack teeth" response that seems to be prevalent. Yeah? Well, we'll see what happens with that. So, we started to play Minecraft 2 in the Discord. Yes, we did. I have a little realm now that I've opened up to the patrons. So, if folks want to play some Minecraft, we have a little realm, and I'm building like a little town. It's really fun. My son is also playing in there too, so it's a fun time. We're having a good time. Okay, let's dive in. It's 40k. Who the heck wants to hear about Minecraft? No one. No one wants to know anything about Minecraft. So let's talk about the balance slate. So in terms of the balance slate, there were a couple of very key changes to the game. Number 1, the change to devastating wounds. So if you've been living under a rock, devastating wounds are no longer mortal wounds. So they don't translate into damage worth of wounds that spill over. Now they're a special type of wound that you cannot take armor or invulnerable saves against. So they're a very powerful hit, but the damage won't spill over and kill like multiple models in a squad. Now, devastating wounds continue to be very, very strong and powerful into large like monsters or very elite infantry, things like that, but you will get diminishing returns into like a horde of zombies or cultists or like units of just like volume of units, and it makes it helps with that granularity that we want, that it seems like they wanted to do with like high toughness vehicles and high strength anti-tank vehicle weapons, where you can't just have a Wraith Knight that has very powerful cannons that are anti-tank cannons be better at killing infantry than like your Night Spinners and stuff like that. So I like that change. I think it is a good change. Now it is important to note that these wounds get allocated at the end of the activation, the same as like mortal wounds. So if there's a character in the unit and you kill the unit with like shooting, and then there's a few dev wounds at the end, like they'll get allocated to like the important stuff later. So it's important to keep that in mind. Then we have the change to modifying stratagem CP cost. Now this is impactful because of two reasons. Number one, you can only make a stratagem free if it's a battle tactic, unless you have a specific rule in your datasheet that says you can use a specific stratagem for free, like the Glocktopus, right? Like there's a Necron pistol guy that can use the Overwatch stratagem specifically for free. There are some units in the game that can use the Heroic Intervention specifically for free. There's like a whole bunch of different ones you can do. Now this means that over the last couple of games, what I've had to do is learn and read what the heck is a battle tactic stratagem. And now that actually matters. So I'm like asking my opponent, is that a battle tactic? Can I make that more expensive with my Vect or whatever? Because that's the second part of this modifying stratagem CP cost. Not only can you only use battle tactics for free if they're battle tactics, but also abilities like the Kala's Assassin, the Death Watch Watchmaster, an Archon's ability to make a command point stratagem more expensive only works if it's a battle tactic, which is very, very interesting. Yeah, no more D cannons putting 23 mortals into my guard. Yes, no more feeling the pain versus dev wounds for my golden boys. That is also true. Yeah, so this has a huge impact. These two things have a big impact in sort of like the damage output of the game. The CP stratagem cost is also very interesting. And of course, stratagems that can only be used more than once per phase or turn. You can only use battle tactics, it's like your captains and things like that. So battle tactic stratagems have become the new like golden standard if you want to use abilities like that. And some of the stratagems that you're used to seeing are battle tactics, like Armor of Contempt for Space Marines, and some of them are not. So, it's always good to double check. Change to dev wounds does make the big weapons make a lot more sense, says Grandmaster Alfarius. But at the same time, it also makes something like 10 Gene Stealers with a Broodlord for so many dev wound attacks feel dangerous. Yes. I really like the change to dev wounds because it's like, look, they just go in and they do some damage. They do work. You can't take mortal invulnerable saves. You can't take armor saves. Cover doesn't work against them. But they're not like, oh, I rolled 12 mortal wounds on my one-shot weapon and killed 10 infantry with a single shot. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So, except for Overwatch with Dire Avengers. Yeah, so Dire Avengers have a very specific thing where they can Overwatch, right? They Overwatch on 4s or whatnot, things like that. Okay, then we have the next one. So Fire Overwatch stratagem was changed. It is now a strategic, well, I don't know if it was strategic, but it is a strategic ploy. You cannot use it on Titanic, so knights and big things cannot Overwatch anymore. Okay, fair enough. Like, they didn't want like a big Valiant with a giant flamer just murdering everything that came within 24 inches or 18 inches or whatever of it. They didn't want a Wraith Knight Overwatching. I think that was the big thing, is the Wraith Knight with Guide to reroll hits killed just as much in Overwatch as it did in its own shooting phase, which made it silly. And you can only target things within line of sight, so visible to your unit. So that's great against things like mortars or D-cannons, for example, where, once again, they could kill you just as effectively in your turn as they could in their turn, making it very frustrating to play against. I think that's also a good change. Little heavy-handed on the Titanic. I feel like with the changes to dev wounds and things like that, needing line of sight, like it's cool to have a big knight kind of shoot stuff. So, yeah, but at the same time, they probably need to cut it a little bit further than what they need to, just to kind of see if it makes a difference in the meta. Necron's even more tanky now, says Justin. Sure. And if Warp Spider spike. Oh, I know. Grandmaster says, Scary, I agree totally. The only time that should be a thing is a mass explosive weapon like a huge artillery shot, but even then it's pushing it. Correct. The Terran effects will not be overwatching because they killed it via points. Well, sure. I'm sure they also dealt with points, but, points go up and down and sideways, and then 3 months from now there'll be new points or whatever. 6 months from now there'll be new points. Insane Bravery. I like this change to Insane Bravery. They changed it to you have to choose to use it before you roll a Battle Shock test in your Battle Shock phase, and you can only use it once per game. Amazing. I love it. You can use it once per game. You have to choose to use it before you roll. This will make that, cheeky Battle Shock test to hold an objective all the more impactful now. And I do like this change. It makes Insane Bravery, actually worth it. It also will hopefully bring that Battle Shock mechanic into the game more, because as it stands, we hadn't really been seeing it at all. Most people even forget to make tanks take Battle Shock tests if they're under 50% wounds. So it's nice to see that they've added something in there. We had a local running a Warhound Titan, and he loved overwatching with that flamer. That is definitely something that I have seen. So that's something that I have seen, is that Warhound Titan, but not anymore. But I like that change. Let me know what you think in the description down below. If there's anything I missed, or if there's something that you disagree with or agree with, let me know. Just put it in the comments. So, Ruins Invisibility. So, big change here to Towering. So, aircraft can still see and be seen as normal. So, aircraft is still very strong that way. But Towering is no longer something that you can just see over ruins and things like that. So now you have ruins, block line of sight. So that is a huge quality of life change. It just means if you go second against a knight player and you're playing on one of the Games Workshop tables that have the orc terrain, which is 4 inches high, and the knights can literally see anything on the board, you're not just going to lose now because you can actually hide behind walls. The compromise of them just towing into the terrain to be able to see through it, great compromise. It makes sense. It works a lot like it did in 9th edition, so I like that change. So that's good. Okay, is this change a buff to Nits? Sure, Dorian, but you couldn't use a stratagem against Nits. They're Shadow in the Warp anyway. To keep it simple, this is the frontline gaming rule. Yes. Yes, it is. So then we have a couple of faction changes for rules. I'm not going to go into much detail with them. I'm going to give you a synopsis. But Custodes, their squad size got smaller. Another big impact for Custodes was a couple of point changes. And the fact that a lot of their stratagems they just don't get to use for free anymore. Right? So the Epic Deed stratagem is now Unwavering Sentinels is Epic Deed, which I think is the fights first. So you can't just do that for free. Big change means you need to use a CP for it. I think they can use the -2 damage, or the -1 damage is a battle tactic still. So they did change that for the strats. And their squad size are smaller, so they don't have the mega massive 10-man units, which were quite obnoxious to deal with when you played against them. They should have taken Overwatch out of the movement phase, or make it a task where you put a unit into Overwatch and they can't do anything else, says Darlyle. Yeah, that's an old 2nd edition style mechanic, where they were oh, I'm going to Overwatch with this unit, right? I don't mind the new mechanic, but some armies and some units do it way better than other armies and other units. So there's a huge disparity between Overwatch being incredibly useful for some armies and useless for others, right? So there's but that's kind of how it's always been, I don't mind the fact that you can be I don't want, if you move that guy, I had my Solitaire get Overwatch today. He moved up and the Hellblasters were bam, 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 and I was oh no, and then they all died. I do as world eaters. I sense a little bit of bias in this conversation. Then we have Adeptus Mechanicus. Now, they got all their saves. So for Skitarii, Rangers, and Vanguard, their saves went to 4 up, and they're 5 up invul. So better saves all around, good invuls, which is awesome, and their points went down massively. I got to play into new old Adeptus Mechanicus, and that list would have gone up like 300 to 400 points. Like they gained 300 to 400 points, and then all of the little infantry units would have been a lot harder to kill. Good changes. We'll see if they affect their win rate. Eldari changes Phantasm to infantry only. Thank goodness. You know, when they have their tanks and the Wraith Knight or whatever big stuff, they have to commit, and they can't just like hide the Incarn behind a wall. They can't just like poke a little fire prism out, pew, shoot you, and then like move the fire prism back in like your turn after you've committed to try and kill it. Good change. Combined with a bunch of point increases, does it change the power of Eldari? Probably not. Eldar have such a crazy depth of units they can draw from. The next list is probably going to be all Dark Reapers and like Dire Avengers or something like that, and bikes. We're just going to have tons of bikes everywhere. But who knows? We'll see what the future will bring with them. The -1 damage is a battle tactic. Nice. Then we have the Agents of the Imperium. So they made the exaction squads 10 strong. Sure. And that's it. They just changed the squad size. It has to be a bigger squad size. So you can't just take little 5-man units to do all your work for you. Now, some of the biggest changes are to Death Guard. Death Guard themselves gain an additional bonus to their Spread the Sickness. They get to pick it at the start of the turn, so you can like decrease your opponent's armor save. You can make them -1 ballistic skill and weapon skill, or you can lower their objective control. It's a really cool mechanic. Will it change the way the army works? I think nobody has really cracked the code on what works for Death Guard yet. But I've played against it. I'm going to play against it tomorrow again, and we'll really see, like, in the next couple of weeks how much it does. However, those abilities are quite strong. I don't mind those abilities. I don't know what you think, but being able to go around being like everything's -1 ballistic skill, -1 weapon skill, makes taking damage a lot harder. Like, you're going to take a lot harder damage. Plus, it's a modifier to a ballistic skill, weapon skill, which means you can then stack minuses to hit on that, like with Cloud of Flies and stuff like that, which is really cool. It means that your chonky guys would have a hard time dying. Then we have Death Watch. So bolt weapons are the only ones that can get all the cool Hellfire, Dragonfire, Kraken. So no more crazy, units of Desolation Marines doing all those crazy bolt round stratagems, essentially. Although Desolation Marines did go down to 5 models max. Still very good, but not overbearing, in my opinion. Then we have Genestealer Cult. The quick change to them is they essentially now are not guaranteed to have their models come back. They had a few points changes there, but it's basically their battle line comes in on a 3+ in the first and second battle round, right? Which is awesome. And then the first and second battle round, it's on a 4+ for everybody else, and then it's on a 5+ for stuff after that. Which means if you kill things, it's just not a guarantee that they're going to come back, which is massive. Which is good. I think that's a good change. Everything else that they've done is good, but that's a fantastic change. Like, that's just good. Grey Knights changed their Hallowed and Soulfire to Strategic Ploy, so I guess they can't use it for free. Then we have the Imperial Knights. Now, this change baffled me, because Knights aren't exactly the most OP army out there, but they're paying for Towering, which doesn't do what Towering does anymore, so they upped all the points. And then they also took Bondsman abilities away from affecting the Big Knight. I thought the fact that the Big Knight and Little Knight could have the Bondsman ability, I thought that was a pretty cool mechanic. To be like, oh, I've got a little guy, I'm teaching him by showing him by example, so I get the Bondsman ability, you get it. But they took that away, and then they're still paying for Towering. A hit and a miss there. I feel like just the change to Towering would have been fine for them. Then again, I'm not a games designer. Then we have Votann. Votann got a stupid amount of points decreases. A 2,000 point list on average went down to 14 to 1,500 points. They really threw Votann a bone. I'm telling you guys right now, they did. Not only that, but at Strike Force, which is 2,000 points, what we normally play in match play, you get to pick 4 units to have max grudge tokens against in the army, in reserve, off the board, whatever, +1 to hit, +1 to wound, which is fantastic. It also combos really well with a couple of stratagems that Votann have. I got to play against Votann in the finals of the RTT this weekend, semifinals of the RTT this weekend, and A, they had a ton more models. B, it was really cool for them to pick like 4 of my units that they just wanted to murder and be able to murder them with efficiency. So I think we're going to see some Votann spice over the next couple of weeks, really starting to climb up in the meta because their stuff is so cheap and they shoot so much now. Bastion Wargaming says, a swarm army of dwarves. Yep. And last but not least, we have the Space Marines. They basically just said you can only have 5 Desolation Marines in a squad. Sure, absolutely, that's fine. That is a good quality of life change, in my opinion. So, going through the Monitoring Field Manual, of course, these are the point changes. I'm not going to go over them in detail. Make sure you check them and go over your faction and check them out. But Sororitas got a bunch of changes in their points. Sisters of Battle didn't get any rules changes, but they can fit more stuff in. Sure, we'll see how that impacts the game. Custodes got a bunch of point changes. Some things went up. They have, like, especially their characters. They, their units are chunkier now. They can't have big blocks, but, they'll have a few less models. Mechanicus went down a lot. They add in a lot, especially their battle line. And a lot of their combos and abilities work off of having battle line close by, like Skitarii and Vanguard. And so you need to have troops, but they were paying like 120 points for 10. Now they're paying like 60 or something, or 70 points. Dwarves or dwarfs? Whichever way you want to say it. Games Workshop did the same to Guard. I had a list that finally built to 2K, now it's 1,600 points. Yeah, I know, right? Venatari became usable. Yes, they did, Dorian. Venatari are definitely usable. Titanicus didn't get any changes. Eldari, bunch of point changes for the better. Anything that takes them down. Like, at this point, we'll see. Is my answer into them. We'll see, because they're all silly. Agents, I can't believe the Calidus went down. Like, I understand that Vect doesn't do the same, like her ability to make stratagems more expensive, but she's so cheap. Why would you never not take her? It's just silly. Astral Militarum, lots of point changes, went down. I honestly think the Guard are going to be a sleeper army moving into the early part of this edition, the next part of this edition, because they can put a lot of stuff on the board. Black Templars got a bunch of point decreases. The fact that Grimaldus and High Marshal Helbrecht are 95 points for a special character is insane to me, because they are so powerful. I've got my Grimaldus right here that I just finished building. I can't wait to paint him, and he's going to go out there and crush some filthy Xenos, which will be great. 2,000 Suns next, says Nick. Hey, Nick, how are you? I'm so jacked for this, says Greenblood Crusade. No, same. It's funny, I built an army. I played, like, Mini Wargaming Matthew, with, like, an army of Black Templars. And then, like, the next week, the Balanced Dataslate came out. So I built another army, the same exact army, except I added, like, 200 points to it. And we were playing 1,500 points. And I was like, this is awesome. And then I played another game, and it was great. Grangers were hit because of Inari. Yes, fair enough. Hey, thank you. I am doing well. Busy. Lots of work. Today I felt was on a tangent, okay? Welcome to SkaredCast, where I do random tangents during my podcast-style show. This is the Monday show, as you can see, right here. Yeah, today I felt was a very productive day. I'm filming out of the new studio now at the Tabletop Forge in Barrie, Ontario, Canada. And so Mondays, I've scheduled a slot for folks. Anyone in the world can come play a game with me if you want. I had someone from near like Grand Bend or Owen Sound or whatever come down all the way down just to play a game with me today. So it's Mondays at 10 a.m. I film a bat rep. So I filmed it and then I edited 2 more bat reps that I had in the can, which is great. And so those are ready to go out for everybody. And I'm really excited. And then tomorrow, mini wargaming, Wednesday, mini wargaming, and then coaching calls on Thursday, Friday. So I feel like this week is going to be super productive. And then the Stutter Snotling team event on the weekend. Huge shout out to all the channel Patreons, without whom none of this is possible. Because it literally isn't. Thanks to the patrons is literally why I get to do this and create content for all of you to enjoy. Ultimentra says, Scary, I'm super curious why Grotesque didn't get a points drop. Because they're probably Finecast and they're like not selling any anyway, and they're like, whatever, who the heck cares about these? Hoping they aren't getting shifted to Legends. If they get a plastic kit, they might be called something that's not a Grotesque. They might be like Homunculus Monstrosity or something. And then they'll make it a bigger base, and they'll make them plastic, and then they'll make them good. So then they can sell more. I'm planning my tournament schedule for next year. Nice. Blood Angels. Check out Sam Guinness 40k. I don't know if he's playing Blood Angels still, but he plays Blood Angels. And a couple of points changes. That's good. I do find Marines in general just had a crazy amount of point decreases, which is good for Marines. Gotta go. Have a great show. No problem, Nick. Thanks for coming to hang out. Nice to see you. Chaos Demons got some changes. I don't think it was like too impactful. You know, a little bit here, a little bit there. Knights, their Armigers, their War Dogs had a couple of changes, so now it's like going to be harder to build like crazy lists. Then we have Chaos Space Marines. Some things went up, some things went down. I think Chaos Space Marines are relatively about the same. You know, nothing too crazy. Dark Angels and Space Marines, most of their stuff went down. Death Guard, most of their stuff went down. Definitely Death Watch, some stuff went up because they were seeing use of a competitive system. Drukhari. So the Dark Eldar, couple of things went down, nothing too crazy. All the characters went down. The Beastmaster went down. The Ravagers were like the only thing that went up 20 points. Sure. I think it's mainly because people were allying them into Eldar that they went up, but at 95 points they were stupidly cheap. However, they put the cost of Ravagers up, and then the Scourge went down. So, okay, sure. And then Mandrakes went down, and they're like the key, like they're such a key part of any Drukhari army. So there was a very little shift for Drukhari, but you know, you gained more points than not in most armies. So it's a good thing. I can only travel 3 times per year out of Mexico. Pues si quieres venir a Canadá, aquí estamos haciendo torneos. Ultimentra says, yeah, I don't think Marines needed quite as much help as they got. Right? Right? Especially with Oath of Moment. Like, what the heck? It's Oath of Moment. Like, how good is that? It's going to get good. 1337 sees my Fabius Bile and Vastrolist dropped a bunch. Nice. I still have my Vastor. I should probably build and paint him. I think Lilith definitely has play now. I think, yes, I agree. Bastion Wargaming says, my Ravagers die so easily. Well, yeah, Ravagers die. That's any Dark... You're saying Ravagers die easily? The whole Drukhari range dies easily. You just look at it and it dies. Like, you should see the battle report I played today. Like, I died a lot. But it's cool to see, like, how much damage we can do, too. Which is awesome. Phil says, I don't think Ravagers went up because of Inari. Warwalkers went up because of the same amount. Also, Scourge went down and is still good. Yes, Scourge went down and is still good. So who knows? But maybe even Urien if you're taking a Talus. Yes, I do like Talus. Urien with the Talus and Grotesque. I think if you're going to do that, you're taking Urien. Going to be trying to go back to the Rust detachment after the points drop. Guard got some really cool updates, which is awesome to see. The question is, their summer schedule for a good size GT in Ottawa? Yes, there are GTs in Ottawa. We have to get you, message me on Facebook. I'll see if I can get you in touch with some people who run that stuff. So Dark Eldar, good. You know, I'm excited about them. Then we have the Genestealer Cult. Some things went up. cool. Nothing too crazy. I think the biggest change there is they can't recycle their units indefinitely forever, which is a good change. You can disagree with me, but it's a good change. Grey Knights, you know, okay, decent. I think some things went up, some things went down, maybe. Mostly down. You know, Imperial Knights, their Helverins and Warglaves went up, and Canis, like, changed. Nothing crazy. Then again, the towering change really kind of messes with them, but they're still paying for towering. I think we're going to see Knights go down in points in the next update, like the big Knights, in my opinion. What's the name of that Blood Angels player you mentioned? Sam Procopio. Sam Guinius 40k on YouTube. So you can always reach out to him as well. Leagues of Votann. Everything went down. Just stack up on Votann. There's like, you can build humongous lists with everything. Necrons. I had the pleasure of playing Necrons at the World Team Championship for Team Canada. And Necrons had some things, most things go up, but it's a good change. The changes to the free stratagem, I think, affects the army more than the point changes does, because now you can't like use the Overlord to like rapidly regenerate on like 2 different units in a turn, that sort of thing. So just something to keep in mind. I think they're still very tough. They're still very strong. The change to Devastating Wounds is actually very good for Necrons because they don't have to worry about getting nuked off the board like a million times anymore. You know, so that's a good thing. The Monolith went down. Whew, there you go. Well, the Transcendent Satan went up, you know, a few points. And then the Sempiternal Weave, did it go up? No. Oh, no, it did go up. No, it didn't. Still 10 points. The fact that you can still take the Transcendent Sempiternal Weave, you maybe lose like a squad somewhere, and you can run the exact same list I ran. Now, Doomsday Cannons did go up quite a bit. So, like, in my WTC list, I basically lose, like, the death marks and maybe the bikes, and then I can keep the list the same, and it's still really good. You know, so I don't think Necrons got a huge hit. Orcs, bunch of stuff. Their trucks went up, thank fudge, because their trucks were crazy at 50 points. Like, how's a Venom 80 and a truck 60? Even then, like, oh my gosh, so silly. So 2 Doomstalkers. I would definitely go Doomstalkers. If you want to keep the DDA thing, Doomstalkers are your go-to. Just 3 Doomstalkers and then maybe 1 DDA just to, like, keep people honest, you know? And to put some extra OC on an objective in the middle of the board or something, you know. But definitely the list changes a little bit, right? Orcs, they have a whole bunch of stuff. Orcs, I think, are another one that gets really good in the Balance Date update. They're just awesome. Space Marines got a stupid amount of point decreases. Some increases, but like most things went down, like ridiculously down, other than Deso Marines. Good riddance. Space Wolves, bunch of stuff went down too. You make some really cool Space Wolf lists at a high pressure aggro. I've played into a bunch of Space Wolves at a tournament level in 10th edition, and they have some, like, they're like on the cusp of being very good because they have high pressure combat. They can get into the middle of the board and like just wreck you, and hopefully having a couple more points to spend on little crap units they can use to screen their backboard and get some fire support, you know, will kind of give them an edge as well. I meant Champion of Russ. Oh, okay, Jared, that makes sense. So you Space Wolf stuff. Neat. Then we have the Tau. They got some point decreases, I think. Tau are another one that like are okay. They just died at Eldar, and Genestealer got like everything else. So hopefully we see Tau kind of do some more. I can't believe I'm saying that I want to see Tau succeed. Somebody pinch me, please, because it doesn't feel right. The Captain Strat really hurt. Yes. Yeah, but now we just have to use it differently. It's more for like armor contempt and stuff now, right? Thousand Suns. You know, some things went up. Sure. Yeah, they got a little reshuffling. Nothing too crazy, though. You know, they were quite strong already. Tyranids, they got a little bit of shuffling, too. The fact that their codex came out, and then this invalidated their codex points, is hilarious to me. But it's nice that they're updating the points and being proactive with it. For the greater good, says Air Train. No, I don't want to see the I don't want to see more Riptides on the table. Ugh, gross. Detachment, a bit enhanced. Oh, they changed all the points of the enhancements. I haven't even seen most of the Tyranid stuff, so whatever. It's all good. Biggest change for Tau was Game Workshop limiting the spotting mechanic, which is so good. Oh, I guess they, show in the, was it in the Dataslate, the commentary or whatever? World Eaters, they got some point changes too. Things went down, so you can have more shit in your list. Good stuff. And that is it. All in all, points-wise, let me know what the biggest impact to your list it was. I know that personally, I had like 3 main lists that I was building. So, my crazy 4 aircraft list, which is really fun to play, went up 30 points because I have a Death Jester in the list. So the Death Jester went up like 30 points, and that made my army more expensive. Okay. Then we had my list that I took to the Capital Sea Bloodbath. My list went down a little bit, so I was able to drop a unit. I dropped the Death Jester. I dropped 1 unit of Scourge, and then I added a Beast Pack unit and a 3rd unit of Mandrakes, I think. Amazing. I love my new list. That's my main competitive list, in my opinion. It is absolute money, and I absolutely love it. Then we have the other one, which is my balanced list. The one that I started to build at the beginning of the edition, which had like Incubi, a Succubus, a Rack unit with like it's a full real space raid. That one saved the most points. Okay, I have to come. I'll be right back. Give me 2 seconds. And I have returned. Sorry, there was my son forgot his keys to get into the house, and he was like ringing the doorbell. Like, wait, that's the doorbell. Why is the doorbell going off? Cue elevator music. Yes, and if Alex Prankster was here, he'd give everybody a bus, a Slith party bus. Okay, moving on to the next thing. So we've got the rules commentary. Now, a lot of folks didn't go through the rules commentary when the changes came out. They changed a few things in the rules commentary, so do not forget to check this kind of stuff when Games Workshop decides to do some changes. So not a lot changed, but what changed had quite a big impact, and some of you might have missed it, some not, so make sure you check all this stuff out. And they actually did put the changes in the red or whatever, which does help you kind of figure out what they've changed. And you have to scroll quite a bit. By the way, the rules commentary, as much as I love it and it's great, I feel like they could have just written the rules better, and they wouldn't have to have an addendum to the addendum of the addendum to explain how your rules work. So we wrote this rules document to explain how the rules document works. I think it's silly, but it's awesome. Okay, so number 1, vehicles with bases. Oh, I got really blurry all of a second. When measuring to and from vehicles with bases, excluding aircraft and walkers, always measure from the closest point of the model for all rules purposes. Measure to the hull. It essentially is now measured to the hull for things like Raiders and Venoms and Tantalises, and this is such a quality of life improvement that makes me so happy, because it literally was so annoying to have to measure to the base and then be like, well, line of sight is from the hull, and then you measure ranges to the base. So it was frustrating for opponents and myself, especially when you were trying to like disembark and stuff, and like move and screen out, and it was just frustrating to say the least. So I'm glad they put that in. They said, you know what? Anything that's not an aircraft or a walker You know, it's literally to the hull. Awesome. Great. I think that was like the main thing that I wanted to go over with this because of the fact that there might be some other change that happened in there, but I don't care about the other changes. That's the one that I care about the most, so that's the only one I'm going to subject you to. So with that, let's dive into the patron questions for today's list crunch. For today's Monday show. So thank you so much to all the patrons who submitted a question. Of course, I put a thread up on the patron page, and you put a question there, or I put it in the Discord. You can always put a Discord question in the Discord down below. Of course, because we're doing it live, if you want to chime in, you can as well. And in some melee instances, you couldn't get into engagement range, says Jared. Yes. Yeah, I'm just glad. It's just it's a nice quality of life thing. So, number one, Andrea Spotty says, your opinion, covens can life? I'm assuming covens are good or can live. Urien can have an overwhelming presence on the board. Maybe he would need lone operative. So I did see you posted a list, Andrea, on the Patreon page. So I go over lists in the list crunch on Friday. So you can always put that down there because then I have it all compiled in one spot. If you're a Trueborn, a Scourge, or an Incubi patron, you can submit one army list and I will read it. I'll break it down and give you all my thoughts and just kind of like 100% do like a list clinic with your list. Other than that, covens, I think, have some play. There's actually a couple of questions in here about me playing Coven. I have been looking at sort of like a durability build for Dark Eldar, and I'm very curious to see if I can make it work. It'd be based around like Urien, a Homunculus, a bunch like 2 units of 10 racks to kind of go with them, or 4 units of 5 racks, depending. Talos, Kronos, Grotesques, and then kind of playing around with double Beast Pack, right? So double Beast Pack, so that's 20 wounds at T4. So they're not necessarily super durable, but they're like tar pity. And they can scout, so they can get aggressive. And then double or triple Court of the Archon units with the -1 to be wounded. So then you have Archon, 30 Cabalites, 3 Courts, Urien, Homunculus, 20 racks, 2 beast packs, and then, fill in with whatever. Scourge, Ravagers. I feel like, I'm not sure how many points that would be. Maybe, Grotesques and Talos. You need Grotesque, Talos, and Kronos. But it's like a cool concept build that I've been thinking about. And I feel would be very interesting to play. Like -1 to wound, high toughness, like fast moving, just lots of wounds to get through. Be different style of play. Not necessarily my favorite style, but maybe there's something there for somebody who wants to try something like that. As for Urien, I think he's quite good. Could he get lone operative? I don't think he needs it. He comes back to life on a 2+. So like you keep him inside of a unit, it regenerates, and then when they kill the unit, then you kill him, and then he just comes back at the end of the phase. And then by that point, the game's done. So I don't think you really need more than that, to be honest. But thank you for your question, Andrea. I really appreciate it. Pomp asks, how often do you need to repair your miniatures? Well, it's quite often, actually. It's really funny because I have a travel army. So like my Dark Eldar army, I've got some models and units, like my Raider that I'm staring at right now, that I took some time to paint. And it's like my new paint scheme. I feel like the paint job is quite good. The same with these guys that I've been painting, the Hand of the Archon guys. I'm taking my time with them. I'm making them look a little bit better than my traditional stuff. But then I have things that I've had painted for 10 years. That's my travel army. And so that gets fixed all the time because they get shoved in boxes. I take it. It's my tournament. It's like a tournament list. It's my tools that I use, and I just use them constantly. So they get beat up. They get scratched. They get dropped. They get squished. They get, so I'm fixing them. Not all the time, but I'm always asking for glue at a tournament, if that makes sense. Because something like clips on your finger because they've got little pointy things, and you smash it and it breaks or whatever. One time I like elbowed a big piece of terrain that was made out of like heavy wood, and it like crushed some of my models, and they exploded, and I had to glue them all together. So it happens. It's one of the reasons I don't bring a showcase quality army to a tournament, because I'm using them fast. Like I'm not like squishing them together. Things like that. That's a great question. Thank you, Pump. Phil asks, you always talk about denying your enemy scoring so they can't outpace you on primary. Yes. Like, primary is a massive part of winning or losing the game. Like, if the primary gets away with you, it's almost impossible to win, right? Can you give more detail on how to execute this if you have barriers to moving your units onto objectives? Example, enemy screening you out of all good deep strikes, threatening Overwatch if you even think about moving squishy infantry, any miscellaneous obstacles you can think of. Okay, so it is on a case-by-case basis, number one, because there are so many permutations to things in the way and obstacles that we could wax poetic, and literally just be here all day talking about like the different combinations. So number one, it starts in list building. One of the reasons I'm running 30 Cabalite warriors and then splitting them into 6 units of 5 Cabalite warriors with venoms is so I have 6 infantry units, right, that are OC2 that I can run around and do stuff with. So that's the number one, is my list is built to have enough units to disrupt my opponent's primary scoring by just standing on it. Number two, move blocking and things like that can be very hard to do, especially with deep striking or whatever. But a lot of the times I'm not deep striking that sort of stuff. And I think it's twofold. You can't get outpaced on primary, but the biggest thing is hold 1 or 2 objectives, or understand which one you need to hold and which one you might hold. And even if you hold it effectively for like 1 turn or 2 turns, you have to use those turns to maneuver in a position to then explode outward and attack the opponent's primary scoring. So get yourself into position, or try pull your opponent out of position. So there's no point in denying your opponent's primary points if you can't do it, but you can maneuver to make sure that when you can do it, your opponent has a hard time setting up those obstacles, right? Like at the end of the day, if your opponent's putting a big unit and literally putting like a ring of models around the objective and like stacking that objective, just you can't stick anything on that objective, well then maybe that's not the objective I'm going to try get. I might go for the one in the backfield, or I might go for one that's on the sides or whatnot. And then as a Dark Eldar player specifically, and as an Eldar player specifically, I use things like Strike and Fade religiously, and anything that allows extra movement, especially out of Deep Strike. I don't try and deny primary out of Deep Strike. I'm denying primary with units that I have on the table at that moment. So things like a Ravager, right? I'll move a Ravager up 14, I'll shoot it, and then I'll use Strike and Fade on it to move another 14 to get onto the objective that's 28 inches away that my opponent put 2 OC on, so my Ravager that's 3 OC can like step on it. And then I'll sacrifice a Ravager, but my opponent doesn't get those 5 points. I don't mind losing every model in my army. If I need to move my Scourge, if they stickied their home objective, for example, and then rushed the middle of the board because they were like, oh, you didn't put anything in reserve, and then they rushed the middle of the board, like, I'm going to grab my Scourge, move and advance my Scourge, shoot with my carbine, move another 6 inches with my Scourge, and then move another 14 for up to 50 inches of movement to go and take their home objective with Scourge, right? It's because I don't care about the Scourge, I care about stopping primary. So it's like a reckless disregard for your unit's ability to survive. As for things like Overwatch and things like that, it's about baiting out the Overwatch. Like, you have to give them some good Overwatch options. But you kind of have to grit your teeth and go, I'm going to put this here. You know, you probably want to Overwatch it because it's literally a solitaire in front of 10 flamers, you know? So killing it is not a bad idea. However, you probably also want to Overwatch this thing over here that's going to run over here and grab this objective. So what I'm trying to create is a dilemma where if they choose to Overwatch here, they don't Overwatch over here. And if they choose to Overwatch over here, then at least I get some benefit by them not Overwatching on this side. You know, little things like that. And as for threatening Overwatch, that's great. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be like, I'm going to threaten if you don't use Overwatch. You know, like I'm just going to move stuff up. And sometimes, you know, your things will die and sometimes they won't. That Scourge tip is really helpful, actually. Thanks. Yeah, no problem, Phil. You know, like, it's one of those things where, you know, movement is king in this game, you know? And I'll always be, like, measuring a Venom, and I'll measure the Venom. I'll measure the guys out of the Venom, so 15 inches, right, from the Venom. And then I'll go, okay. And then the guys inside could move another 8, right? So I could go, ooh, look at that. They got 17 plus 8. That's like 25 inches from where this Venom is. They could go and stand on an objective, you know? So, you know, it's just important to, like, you know, think about stuff like that. Can't let people mental you out of what you need to do, says Jared. Put it back on them. Yeah, exactly. I've had a ton of trouble playing versus Warp Spiders and Neophyte Blobs in Gene Stealer Cult. All my high OC units get threatened. Trouble playing versus Warp Spiders. Yeah, Warp Spiders are, like, so good. Like, Warp Spiders are just incredible. Wait, you can actually move after exiting a Venom? No, you can't move after exiting a Venom. You can use the stratagem Strike and Fade, right? So you move the Venom, you disembark. So that's a 14-inch move with a 3-inch disembark. Then at the end of the shooting phase, you can use the Strike and Fade stratagem to move up, like you know, another 8 inches with your unit, especially if you're using that. Another option is reserving a unit of Cabalites or whatever, which I did today, actually. I reserved a unit of Cabalites. They came on the side. They started their cleanse action. I blasted the unit that was on the objective with Dark Lances off, and then they used Strike and Fade to go and hop onto the objective to do cleanse. You know, because why not? You know, there's just and I'm thinking of that a turn ahead, so I just have enough command points in my back pocket to do it. So if something has to die and I can't lightning fast reflex it, or I can't phantasm it, so I have that CP to like double, like move it in the end of the, that's like the most powerful stratagem we have. It's just incredible. Can't you just do the same with Strike and Fade on the Venom? Yes, you could, but the Venom is objective control 1. So we're talking about taking objectives. You know, so it works if they only have one model on objective that you need to contest, or if they didn't leave anything on the objective and they just stickied it, then the Venom would be a lot faster, right? 14 inches with the Venom plus another 14, but the same thing as a Ravager, but a Ravager's OC3, so it's a little easier to do with a Ravager, etc., etc. You can get back in the Venom, no? Well, you could if you wanted to. You know, a lot of the times what I'll do is I'll split up my Venom and my Cabalites, and I'll send the Venom up onto like an objective to do an action, and then I'll get the Cabalites out. The Cabalites will shoot, and then at the end of the fight phase, they hop into the Venom, and the Venom's doing an action, right? So that doesn't, you know, then the Venom completes that action. But other than that, Phil, I hope that helps you out, and I'm looking forward to our chat on, was it Thursday? Thursday or Friday? Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It's in the calendar. Next question is from Carl. It says, I want to see you play Drukhari Chunky Boys. What models are you lacking for such a list? I'm lacking, I think, 2 Talus. I have 4. I need 2 more, so I'd like to run 6. No, I have 6. I've run 2 units of 3. Oh, yes, I could run 6. No, so I'm not lacking anything. I think I just have to do a little bit of work on my racks to kind of bring another 10 rack models up to speed to the like stats and stuff like that. But I think that's one of the things I'm going to play around with. After the Stutter Snotling event that's happening this weekend, totally going to jump into some Coven stuff. Maybe run a couple of Coven lists, see how that works. Then we have the Unstable Llama ask, in my list, I take 50 warriors and an Archon. Nice. They are just so useful and flexible. But with the changes, I can't afford the Art of Pain. Sure. Coupled with the Vect nerf, don't think it's really a nerf. It's just changed. Do you think it's worth taking a Homunculus and a unit of Rax instead of the Archon and 10 warriors? Pros and cons. Okay, so pros. Homunculus can take the Crucible of Malediction. Amazing enhancement. Really fun. Game-changing if you learn how to use it properly. Rax keep the Homunculus alive, and they're really chunky. Cons for that is they're not Cavalry Warriors. Cavalry Warriors are just 10 times better. Now, the Archon and 10 Cavalry Warriors, pros, you can split them into 2 units of 5 with a Venom. The Archon has a 2-up Invul save, which can be really handy in a pinch. And that Vect is still very good, especially into stuff like Armor Contempt, and some key stratagems are actually battle tactics, which is very important to note. Also, I dropped the Art of Pain long ago. I found I'm not needing it. I just have to make sure I kill stuff. And so I make sure I kill things. And I start with 5 in my competitive list, and I spend them all. I may have 1 for 1 turn, and then from that 1 I get 4 more, and then the cycle begins again. So it's usually how it goes at the end. Grandmaster Alfarius says, the way I get around its redundancies. Do the same thing twice. They might stop 1, but they can't stop 2. Maybe you get both, or you only get 1. Either way, you are scoring. Yeah. Gotcha, just bought 60 racks to repaint, selling my old ones. I hate stripping paint. Yeah, that makes sense. Me too, I don't like stripping paint. I do it very rarely. I usually just do a wash on top of my old stuff and then like touch it up. And it usually works okay. Art of Pain got me 5 tokens last game. I played amazing into elite armies. It plays amazing. Yeah, I'm not saying Art of Pain is not good. It is definitely good. I'm saying I haven't found I needed it. I use the Crucible of Malediction. I use a unit of Rax to get killed if I really need a pain token, and I tend to do okay with pain tokens. And against like elite armies, I'm a little bit more sparing with them. Like I don't just spit them out on everything all the time. Like I need 1 to put on my Void Raven Bomber, and that's about it. That Void Raven Bomber tables armies. It is so freaking good. Okay, so with that, thanks a lot, everybody, for hanging out with me today on the Monday show. A huge shout out to all the channel Patreons. Don't forget, this is a Patreon bonus show. Sometimes I let everybody watch because it's really fun, but we do have an awesome community on Discord. The link is down in the description below if you want to hop on. It is the best way to support what I do on the channel to make more content for all of you to enjoy. I'm going to go and make some more battle reports and do some more stuff, and I'll be back on the next one. This has been Season 2, Episode 3 of the Monday show. Thanks a lot for hanging out. I've been Skari, your grateful host, signing off until next time. A Skari out. Thanks a lot, everybody, for hanging out with me. I'll catch you on the flip side. The Dark Kin. Bye, everyone.